construction of High Street from Union to Water and Church Street from School Street up to Walnut Street in our downtown. This work will intersect with other work that has been recently completed or about to be undertaken. That includes the Water Street project, which was completed in 2018. High Street north of Water Street up to Plain Street will be done this year. And also Walnut Street between Church and Water Street will be done this year as well. Nelson Street was also done. In short, this is a infrastructure and economic development project, both. I don't think I need to go into too great detail about the condition of the infrastructure on High Street. I'm sure you're all acquainted with it. In short, though, substantially deficient lighting downtown, deteriorating surfaces, both on the edges of sidewalks, granite curbing, brick detailing especially, crosswalks that in some instances don't meet current best standards, poor drainage, and well, I guess that pretty much covers it. And the roadway itself isn't so good either. We've been working since last year with Beta Group, an engineering firm that has previously done work in town and studies in town. They did our complete street study. They did our downtown lighting master plan, and with the downtown steering committee to devise a plan that will address infrastructure issues, hopefully put them to bed for about a half century, and eliminate lighting conditions in the downtown, provide us with what we hope will be an attractive downtown, the kind of downtown that will do a better job of attracting business and customers, and will be an emolument to the town. This is our principal commercial district for sure, but it also is in many ways the heart of our community. In the downtown, there are over 700 units of housing, about 1,850 jobs. Is the civic space where we all have the good fortune to bump into one another on a Saturday morning. It's where we have our Memorial Day parade. It's an important civic space, and we'd like to have it treated as such. So in short, that's the broad overview. I'd be happy to go into details about any particulars of the infrastructure improvements that are proposed.
Okay, Phil, I'm going to open up to the board to ask you some questions, if they so desire. I have a few myself.
Okay.
I'll open up to the board first.
So Phil, I'm just curious, because I think we would all agree that there's a challenge with High Street in general because of the traffic, the bump outs. There's not enough room for two cars to go by when, you got somebody parked, near or on the bump out, right? So why wouldn't we take this opportunity to make more room on High Street for parking and more accessible for traffic?
Well, first of all, there's a number of competing interests in the downtown. There's pedestrian circulation and vehicular circulation, in short.
Pardon?
There are competing interests. There are competing users. There are users in the downtown that compete for that space. That space is limited as well. It's interesting to note that the right-of-way on High Street is smaller than you'd think. It's narrower than you'd think. A lot of the sidewalks are actually on private property. So there's that limitation. You can look at that a number of ways. The competition of cars and parking, and in a small way pedestrians. If we increase the travel width, then we need to eliminate the diagonal parking, which means eliminating a considerable number of parking spaces. So there's that as an issue. If we keep the number of spaces, then we have a sufficient but not overly wide travel lane. But in and of itself, that's not necessarily a bad thing in terms of design. It keeps people traveling at safe rates of speed in the downtown.
Was there any consideration of making it just a one-way street?
No.
Why?
One-way streets don't tend to work in terms of economic development. You can look at Fitchburg for a real example. One-way streets tend to dramatically decrease the number of trips on that street, which dramatically reduces the opportunity for businesses to partake in that traffic flow.
Our sidewalks seem to be extremely wide. Why do we have to have them so wide? I just feel like there's an opportunity. There's not enough spaces downtown to begin with. And I guess I don't understand, if we're taking this opportunity to upgrade, why wouldn't we want a design that's going to be more efficient and effective for the downtown? I don't see that this is it.
Well, we've done a parking study, and the parking study demonstrated that, in fact, there is enough in terms of parking inventory. There is an adequate number of spaces in the downtown. They're very poorly managed. What many towns have done, but we've chosen not to do in the short term, is to price parking. One of the deficiencies of our parking management to date has been that we treat every parking space in downtown as if it has the same value. So the parking space in front of the Santander Bank has the exact same space as the parking spot in front of Gene's Towing. We charge the same amount for them. We regulate them the same. So we treat them the same. And they don't have that same value. So one thing that came out of the parking study, and you'll see in the new signage and a new regime of enforcement, is to begin to differentiate the areas of downtown for parking. So we've created zones for longer-term parking and zones for shorter-term parking. The idea that we'll get the turnover in those areas where it's needed. So I respectfully disagree in terms of your characterization of some of the physical conditions in downtown. Again, it's been demonstrated in the study that there's really much more than adequate supply of parking on all blocks except one, and that I think that through management we can have that resource work for the betterment of downtown, for the betterment of business activity in the downtown.
So they believe that by from my perspective, if we got rid of the bump outs, that would create more parking. So what is the significance of the bump outs that we would keep them?
The bump outs do two things. They allow for a mid-block pedestrian crossing so that people can cross safely mid-block.
I'm fine with the ones in the intersection, but the ones by Jaconi's and the other one by the cop, why would we keep those?
Again, for a mid-block pedestrian crossing, but the one in front of the coffee shop is also a loading zone. If you know, and so the theater takes its deliveries there. When the paper store was there, it took its deliveries there. Other businesses take deliveries there. If you want to appreciate what it would be like without those bump outs, just see what happens on High Street when Simple Man gets its beer delivery. The truck has to pull out and stay in the middle of the street behind the parked cars, which reduces the travel length to one lane. So cars have to sit there, stop, peek behind the truck, and see what happens. With that, we had a lot of discussion about that bump out. That discussion included the business owners downtown. We talked about varying the dimensions of it, and the determination was made, at least on the coffee shop side, to keep it at its length, because that's the length that all but an 18-wheeler can queue in and unload and allow people to safely cross the street and allow traffic to continue to go by. So if we eliminate that, we would get, I think, 4 or 5 spaces. Mind you, there's a hydrant on one edge of where that bump out is now. So we'd pick up a small number of spaces, but I don't think High Street would function all that more efficiently for having gained that 4 spaces, but having lost the opportunity to load and to have a safe pedestrian crossing mid-block. Because people do cross mid-block all the time.
Sure, I understand that, but years ago, we never had the bump outs, and, when we had the Woolworths and the Stowers and the Mellows, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful downtown. I respectfully disagree, but those are my questions.
I have a question down by Mr. Z's Pizza and so forth. What type of curving, are we putting anything in front of those 2 stores?
We have looked at a number of alternatives to address the need for parking and the need for, and the existing condition. The existing condition is that we have lot line to lot line curb cuts at those properties, and the turning motions that people have to take to get on or off that private property are not ideal. We basically have to back
So
up.
you're taking those spaces away from those businesses?
We haven't had a conversation with those property owners yet, and we need to do that before we.
What is
build
your
any-
plan? That's my question.
What this plan shows,
Those parking there.
for the parking there,
That one shows parking, correct?
this plan here that you're looking at now, which I think is blown up somewhere in the back here, shows basically the status quo. That, yeah, so if you look at the concept plan Prospect Street to Richardson Place, it shows effectively the status quo, that we would create some landing areas at that flank French Terrace, and that we would, clean that up, but that effectively those would remain curb cut to curb cut parking spaces. We have other plans which would look at either eliminating that, but that would mean that there would be no, installing parallel parking, which is otherwise on the block, which is not likely, or another plan where we might seek to approach these owners and create a bay of angled parking, but move the sidewalk onto the private property. I can show you what that looks like, but honestly, we have to have discussions with those property owners before we proceed in any of those.
So you have two options there, either put the
Yeah.
sidewalks in and they park out front and leave a 5-minute parking sign, or to allow them to still do what they're doing.
Yeah,
Similar.
there's three options really, and the other is to just install parallel parking, but that seems the least efficient and the least effective. What happens if we can come to agreement with these two property owners and put the sidewalk on their frontage, but park angled in on the public way, it would end up with effectively the same number of parking spaces. But, we could sign them so that they'd be basically 15-minute parking or parking for, maybe we could even do like we do at,
So you
Cool.
used the term, the parking will work with proper management. Can you break that down? What's proper management?
parking management is effectively understanding that parking is the idea that your parking inventory is a resource, and that to be optimally used, it needs to be managed. That can be anything from as simple as signage and enforcement. The most common thing you see are the installation of meters, and establishing zones of parking.
See the last one?
Establishing parking zones, so you have, as we propose to do, so that if you're, say, working at the bank, or you're a resident of downtown, and you need to park for 12 hours at a time, just don't park on High Street, Park away from the areas where there are businesses that rely on turnover for their parking. So,
That's a great theory, but how are you going to enforce it?
through enforcement. And
Have you
we,
talked to the chief?
yes, the chief has been on board with this all along. And the chief, Chris McGowan, and I communicate at least quarterly on updating. And we, through our downtown steering committee, we communicate with the property owners down there to try to understand how it's working.
Are meter maids in the works?
That was not contemplated in the first round. In our parking study, which I'd be happy to share with you, makes a series of recommendations, and those recommendations in terms of the level of engagement and investment are kind of tiered. And the first tier is to install signage and enforce. If that's not working, you revisit in a year and say, oh, maybe it's time to put in meters. We had a public meeting probably 2 years ago. The selectmen weighed in, and it was their determination at that time to begin with enforcement and signage and not with metering. So if you notice, all the downtown has been fully signed as to parking requirements.
The crutch seems to be on enforcement. If
Yes, it
that's
does.
not working, the whole thing fails.
Yeah,
And if you're thinking of meters, would you put those in before you did all this work, or drill afterwards?
it could be done either way. A lot of
What's the
them,
preferred way?
I suppose the preferred way would be to at least put some infrastructure in the ground. That's becoming more common, where you basically install conduit and run a couple wires, whether it's for 5G or different kinds of lighting that you might install, or for meters. So we haven't had a meaningful discussion about that, because right now we're still trying out this management regime. Enforcement regime, I
So on
should
the
say.
meters, with no cost study as to the cost to install and maintain versus the revenue coming in,
No, not a meaningful one, not a sophisticated one.
what's been your experience listening to other towns that may have done it?
I think that if we were to install meters, I'd be, some towns make a little bit of money. I was talking actually today with a fellow who's my contemporary in Gardner. He said they probably make, $40,000 or $50,000 a year on the meters. Is that enough to pay for the enforcement? We've talked about having meter maids, if we did that, and, basically ideally, the metering would be self-supporting, that we'd make enough through metering to pay for the enforcement that comes along with that. No, there hasn't been a meaningful study, a sufficiently sophisticated study done on that particular question as to help us make a decision. If only because the decision in the first round was to go with enforcement.
I think depending on the residents and the employees on High Street, the park off High Street hasn't worked, it probably won't. Again, the whole thing sits on the enforcement. And
Yeah.
if you're not going to have the enforcement, the whole thing fails.
I agree.
So I know one of the goals is to create a vibrant and engaging downtown. And I think that's great, because I think it's long overdue. Are we doing anything to, are there gonna be any guidelines around the look of people's establishment, right? So, for example, I mean, are we going to put in some type of guidelines or recommendations when people come and rent here and they wanna, I don't know, just say a paper store? Do we have any opportunity to make sure that what their store looks like is appropriate for, right? I'm trying to be delicate.
No,
here.
absolutely. Let's have that
Right.
discussion. We do have a set of downtown sign and facade guidelines. They go along with our sign and facade program, which is federally funded. But the reach of that is very limited. If you're not taking our money, we can't make you use them, so to speak. So they exist out there. I've had conversation with the building owners. They're interested in them. It's useful to give people some indication of what the community's desires are. But to be honest, Ellen, so far, we haven't seen anybody put any money in the downtown to see if they would take them or not. I take it back, with the exception of,
We have 2 stores in downtown the last 5 years. Mexican restaurant and Clinton Bar and Grill.
But my point
Yeah.
is, I think we would have more if we made it more inviting.
no, yes, absolutely.
So that could be a bylaw thing for the planning board, correct?
Right.
Well, to be honest, unless you have a local historic district, which I don't think there's a taste for, you don't have the authority to review, to approve or deny an application based on design. So you can issue guidelines, but they
Yeah,
have,
I
they
mean, how
have,
do we fix that, I guess?
under law, the only option would be, to the best of my knowledge, would be an historic district, a local historic district, which
You've got
Because
the
how did
whole-
Hudson do it? I mean, Hudson was a dump, honestly.
yeah,
and-
but
and-
Hudson is doing that not through, Hudson's not doing that through regulation. You have a set of motivated property owners. We hope to attract the same.
So how do we motivate our property owners, right?
Hopefully in any of a number of ways, and we've been trying to do that by bringing in sign and facade money. We've provided signage for 8 businesses, signage or awnings. We had our first facade improvement project come back. It came in over budget. We only opened the bids last Thursday, so we're revisiting that. Hopefully we do it through creating a more functional downtown, and parking enforcement is part of that. Hopefully we do that by creating a more attractive downtown, and this project will create both a functional and more attractive downtown. And hopefully we do it by creating a community of engaged stakeholders in the downtown, whether they be business owners or property owners, who see some benefit to acting in concert or acting in concord to make something good happen. One thing that we may see in the coming years is, among other things, we're beginning to see a turnover in the ownership of property. We have some properties that have been held by some property owners for quite a while, and with some turnover comes at least the possibility that there'll be a change in sensibility.
Right.
Who will be responsible for snow and ice removal? Still the property owner?
Yeah. That's again, in terms of having a more functional downtown, we've had these discussions too about, and I think there's an understanding that if we go to this effort, that we're gonna do a much better job of maintaining the
So-
downtown and maintaining the infrastructure and making sure that it's available to people at all times of year.
Bill, how many people on your committee?
There are 9 people on the committee.
Can you give us their names?
Sure. There's Chris McGowan, there's the DP superintendent, myself, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, that's Mike Jakonski and currently Sean Kerrigan. Previously it was Dave Sargent before he stepped down. Dale D'Amico from the Planning Board, and then Kathy Livingstone, who's co-owner of Briley Systems, the IT company that moved into the post office. Rob Nairns from the Strand Theater. Bob Paulus, who's the president of Clinton Savings Bank, and Peter Wong, who's a resident of town and owns 325 to 329 High Street. We try to get some representation of different stakeholders in the downtown that were more or less distributed across downtown from one end
How
to the
long have
other.
you been meeting on this project?
We've been meeting as a committee for just about a year. I think our first meeting was June of 2018. We've been meeting on this project probably since September.
Okay.
So as far as snow and ice goes, just wondering, the big bump outs at Church and High.
Yep.
you know, when I see parking lots putting berms in, you see those get ruined very easily by plows and the like. Is there a huge reason to have those big bump outs there? Do you just make the
Yeah.
crosswalk smaller, or?
Well, there's only one bump out that's being added. 3 of those 4 bump outs are following exactly the same profile
Really?
that they
Okay.
do now. It's only and it's funny you should mention that because the original plan was a little closer to this, but it was actually Jerry Buffton, who was a selectman and a member of the DPW, who insisted that the one from the paper store be removed. The bump outs do 2 things. It allows us to make that crossing, by installing that bump out on the 4th corner, it makes the crossing a little narrower. And if you traverse that intersection on a regular basis, it actually is kind of a long intersection. It also, more crucially though, allows us to bring the crossing about 10 feet on each side of Church Street, a little close, about 10 feet closer to the center line of High Street. And what that will allow is for drivers, when they come to a full stop on High Street, to get a better sight distance down the street. You know now, especially if you're coming up Church Street, that's a treacherous and difficult intersection. And our only option would be to eliminate 4 or 5 spaces on either side of the intersection to get adequate sight distances. This will be a better condition if we allow those drivers to come up closer to the center line to get a better view of traffic that's coming by. So that's one very functional thing that bump out will allow us to do.
Okay. I'm all set with Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for
Phil.
coming in.
Thanks.
That was very informative.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think you could talk that long without taking a breath.
Oh, you go. I'm always getting
Thank you very
started.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We'll get to that later. Let's go over the budget. You now have the final budget for our, unless something changes. We had 4 or 5 minor payroll changes per the town accountant. We had 1 major change. If you look at the second to last page, under snow and ice, we were using a projected figure. That figure was recalculated and determined to be a couple $100,000 less. So I eliminate some of the overlay that we're using to balance the budget, and as you can see, we have about $117,000 for articles to help us out. So that's where basically that extra money came. And there's,
Go through that again.
okay,
We found out. we
snow,
got the
snow and
news.
ice is not $495, it's $295. So we put it at the number it is. So the final numbers came in, we've been working on those.
The number from last year was being carried. I did not notice, my board did not notice until today.
Right, that it was too high.
The deficit for this year was lower than it was a year ago.
So-
That surprised me,
What's the
but
deficit?
surprised everybody, but that's the way it was.
Ballpark.
None of it's there.
295, it was 495.
I'm not surprised. I mean,
So I adjusted 100 out of overlay because we had pushed that up a while back to get something to balance. And last but not least, there was one other adjustment Mike had. He had 4 small payroll adjustments that now were to explain. But we did have workman comp insurance that Mike felt that 200,000 was the number instead of 175, and I changed that number. So, and again, this money will be used for articles at the end. I don't really see any other budget that needs anything right now. So, I could go through budget by budget, but I guess we're gonna have a final vote on this after the public hearing. So, again, snow and ice went down a couple $100,000. We didn't hit up overlay like we had stretched at the hit on overlay, so I reduced that a little bit. We're leaving the rest of the money for articles.
Okay.
Okay. So let's do what we're really here for, is the town warrant. So some of these smaller ones are already in here, but let's just go through it quickly. Okay, so the first one is Article 6, that's changed. Article 5's been there for 100 years. Yeah, those are all standard articles. We intend to vote on them tonight, right? So, let's go. Article 2, basically a standard article, setting the salaries and the expenses and compensation. I need a motion on that.
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Article 3, again, standard raise and appropriate from the current tax levy.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Article 4, again, compensating balance agreement with a banking institution. Another standard article.
Motion to approve.
We don't have.
We don't have to approve that one, so moving right along. Next one's a money article, $4,800.
That's the one I thought we were on. Sorry about that, Jim.
Okay, Article 5.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second,
Second.
favor? Okay, next one is Article 6. That number's been changed from roughly 15 grand to 20 grand, as we discussed. We have a motion on that article.
Motion.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, let's go to Article 7. Just setting the revolving account limits, correct? We do this every year? Okay. We have a motion on Article 7.
Motion.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, Article 8. We're gonna take, instead of 15,000 in overlay for this program, we're gonna take 30. It's agreed on with the selectmen. Do we have a motion on this article?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. $150,000 for the health insurance liability account.
Motion.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Article 10, another $150,000 to put in stabilization.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? You keeping up with us over there? Just checking. Article 11. So basically, we're taking money out of the enterprise fund and putting it into the from the landfill fund to the enterprise, not a revolving fund, but the enterprise fund itself.
Out of the retained earnings into the DEP mandated
Closure.
closure.
Okay. So again, let's go over that. We're putting some money aside
From retained earnings.
from
in
retained
the
earnings
landfill
for the
enterprise
closure.
To the closure account that will be used over the years. The DEP has mandated to put money aside every year.
Okay.
Motion.
Second? Okay, Bob, all those in favor? Okay. Okay. So, we're transferring $450 million, $4.5 million to our, from the landfill to our
Special stabilization fund.
special stabilization. Wow. It's a big word.
Motion.
What's so special about it?
Not really.
For capital
It's not
improvements. It was
special.
set up a few years ago at town meeting.
Yeah.
And we take money from the
Right.
landfill enterprise and put money into it.
Yeah.
And then you can spend out of it, but first you have to put money into it.
Does the money coming out have to be approved at a later date?
Mhm.
Okay, so we're just
Motion.
taking money out of one fund and putting it into the stabilization fund. We have a motion?
Yeah, motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Article 13, some old bills that we have. Gonna raise and appropriate this article, or we may pay it out of free cash. I say we raise and appropriate, because we do have $100 and some odd thousand there. Okay, we have a motion on Article 13.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Gonna take some money out of the cable fund, correct?
You have to appropriate money in an article in order to spend money from the
Okay.
fund.
Okay.
We may not spend it all, but if you don't do this, you can't spend any.
Okay. Have a motion on this article? I believe I've seen it before.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Okay. Article 15. This is the capital improvement fund, capital improvement for downtown, which we just had a
Presentation.
presentation tonight, thank you. I'm gonna give you my opinion. Guys worked for a year on it. I'm not necessarily would do it that way, but I haven't sat there for a year through the meetings. In this article right here, the discussion has been that we're going to take $3 million out of the infrastructure stabilization fund and borrow $1.5 million, of which that borrowing will be reduced by any grants we receive from the state. So I'd like to approve it that way.
Well, how many grants do we have out?
Once we get, we've just gotten the plan ready to
Oh.
do this, so. in
So we
plan-
don't have an estimate on how many grants we're gonna put out there?
We're gonna try to get a whole $1.5 million for it.
Mhm.
And Phil has been pretty confident, he thinks he can get $1 million, but nothing's guaranteed. But if we wanna push this project forward, we've kind of agreed to use $3 million out of the stabilization fund, borrow $1.5 million, subject to the grants. It's gonna take almost 6 to 9 months to get this thing moving, so. So I'd like to have a motion structured that way.
Make the motion.
Okay, so it's structured in that tone. Do we have a second?
So we're approving $4.5 million for the improvement of High Street as presented by Phil tonight.
Yes.
That is correct. 3 million from the enterprise fund.
And
1.5 million borrows, subject to the grants we get to reduce that borrowing.
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the vote?
What was the vote? All in favor?
In
Sure.
favor?
Okay. Okay, let's go to Article 17.
Necessarily agree with everything, but okay.
I agree with you on that, but I didn't sit there for a whole year in the meeting, so I can't say. Okay, $640,000 for the repair on the roof at the middle school.
I guess in the future, for major projects like this, we should have them in to talk to us about.
Or we should have had somebody
like,
on that committee.
Several meetings prior to approving this.
Well, that's right.
We gotta, there's gotta be better communication around
Well, listen,
what we're doing,
By the time I s-
particularly with the finance committee. I mean, we're approving something, we don't even, we're just getting the details of it while we're approving this.
right,
so,
that is correct.
we should be able to have some input, particularly around the fact that we're the ones approving the money for the project.
get somebody on there.
Well, I think that we're gonna push to
Somebody on
get
that
committee members on some of these other committees, because, again, I didn't think this was coming up this year. I was asked 4 or 5 months ago, do I think we can do the lights
I
downtown?
mean, the fact that we're just learning about who was on the committee tonight, not acceptable.
Well, I agree with you. So, it's gonna be.
Something is that major, I mean, something as major as that should,
Well, I think that we should
shouldn't
get-
hand out this way.
I think we gotta get more of our board members on the committees. I haven't offered you people, nor have they asked for you. But I think that we're gonna start doing that when we see something coming up. And I never thought this project, a $600,000 lighting project, maybe we didn't need anybody on a committee. A $4.5 million project downtown, we should have had somebody there.
Mhm.
So, it's something we're gonna learn.
We should have had a lot more discussion on it with us,
Right. Well, okay.
just my opinion.
I agree with you. Just, again, we have to be more concerned when things get started. We should have more information. I did not. Like I said, I was informed that we were gonna do 600 or 100 or 900 in lighting. Then it got to this.
But it's not just our responsibility to reach out, they have a responsibility to reach out to us.
I think we'll inform people of that. Thank you. Okay,
Approve
articles,
the project 1 year, and from then on, you get notice.
well, that's true. Again, it takes so long to get this going, So, okay, let's go to Article 17. This is the roof on the middle school. We all know we all know that it has to be done. It is a borrowing article, as far as I've figured, so I'd like to vote it as a borrowing article. So I could use a motion on it.
So I know that there was some discussion about whether we were gonna do this or not, because they were potentially going to redo the middle school. I mean, is that,
Well, there was another article on for a generator, which we consulted with them, and it's not on here, because I'm not gonna put $100,000 in a generator in 3 years from now.
That's the roof.
oh,
When they do
okay.
the rehab, that
Roof is a-
Oh,
state
that was
would
for,
have
the-
paid.
I'm sorry, I'm.
I mean, the roof has to be
misunderstood. So
done,
that-
'cause-
that- Yeah, the roof,
The roof
it was,
is a
it was for the
$2.5 million
generator,
job.
yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to
That's
make
fine.
this a borrowing article.
Make
So-
a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, again, now we have that truck that Chris wants. Basically, it's a new 1-ton to clean all the basins. I think the one he has is probably very close to ancient. And again, I intend to take this out of free cash. So this is a
Motion.
motion to basically approve the article and use of free cash.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
So we're gonna change the wording of the article?
We will state how it'll be stated. I don't know if the article itself states it, but I believe they bring it up at town meeting on how they're gonna finance it.
At town meeting, the public gets this, but the script and what they say from the podium tells the funding source.
Okay, this is the exciting Article 19. When we were in committee with the selectmen, we wanted to put $500,000 in this article from the Stabos Enterprise Fund. I guess Chris McGowan explained to them that it's gonna cost $1.2 million just to do Berlin Street. So the selectmen approved $1.5 million. I know Ellen would probably be for this because, again, this is our opportunity to use that stabilization money to fix one of the major roads in town. With Chapter 70 and the extra 300, we're gonna put over $2 million into the roads this year. A lot of money. Again, it's coming out of stabilization, the enterprise stabilization, that's what it's intended for, but I'm at the mercy of the board. I believe it's gonna be used properly, and, you know, Berlin Street is one of the gateways into the big city of Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all the roads need to be done in Clinton.
Right, we start with the big ones first and work our way in. Look at Water Street, I use Water Street now, isn't that great?
Yes, but, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like, listen, I'm at the mercy of the board here. We can approve a less amount, but again, if you want to do Berlin Street, it's $1.2 million. Chris had the plans in the office when I was there, he didn't have the price, but when he got to the selectmen that night, he did. So, what do we want to do?
The road needs to be done. I mean, I don't know where, we're not gonna get money anywhere else.
Well, we're never gonna have this opportunity now, because by the end of next year, you know, maybe the dump starts slowing down, and we don't have this kind of cash flow. So,
I'll make the motion.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Fine.
Because,
I live on Berlin Street.
yeah, okay,
You're abstaining? I'm
yes.
sorry.
Should I, I live on Berlin Street.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not specified.
confused.
All
You
right,
don't have a conflict, this is only advisory.
all right, so I'm not abstaining.
Okay, so I'm glad we cleared that up. Okay, Article 20, it's another, it's a drainage project that we have. And I tend to do this out of free cash. So it's a $200,000 project to fix the drainage on Pleasant Street, Marshall Street, Liberty Street, Summit Street, and Wilson Street. And we would approve and the use of free cash. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
I don't live on Summit Street.
Bill? Yeah.
Okay, this motion right here is to pay for the dredging of Salt Meadow Pond, which we've agreed to do, coming out of the landfill account. Pretty standard stuff. We knew we had to do it.
Motion.
Second.
All's in favor? Okay. It's a water meter article, coming out of water and sewer account, comes out of their budget. I don't have a problem with it.
This is repurposing money that was in the water meter article a few years ago. They didn't use it all, so they would like to repurpose it, but you have to have an article to do that.
Okay. So we didn't use all our water heater,
For the
water meter
meters.
money. He's gonna use it for related sewer improvement repairs.
Correct.
We also have to do another infiltration study, I remember Phil telling us that. Okay, so we have a motion on this article?
Motion.
We have a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Here's some more money for the infiltration and sewer study. Again, this is gonna come out of the water and sewer account. This one will probably be borrowed, I would imagine.
I would think.
Yeah, it's a borrowing article for the water and sewer account. I don't have a problem with it. So we have a motion. Something mandated by the state, so it's not mandated by us.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Again, this is another water and sewer article. I assume it'll be borrowed to do the work that's in regard to the tanks on Mulberry Drive and Birded Hill. Standard borrowing article for them. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Bill, Bob seconded. All those in favor?
Barry?
Article on Wiki Peaky, we gotta fix some stuff over there. The dam is in disrepair, we usually do some work there. This is a major project there. Again, paid for by water and sewer. Is this a borrowing article? I would say no. No, I don't see it in his budget. Let me look for 1 second.
I believe it's borrowed,
Okay. So let me
if
just-
it's an article.
That's correct. Okay. So we're gonna borrow on that article, put them all together. We have a motion on that article?
Motion.
We'll give it to Barry. We'll have a second. Bob, all those in favor? Okay. This is $200,000 for the public safety software. I talked to Mark and the fire chief. Again, we're using 15 or 20-year-old software to do what they have to do in the police station. And the fire department just got new software and they're trying to connect to it and it's not working the way it's supposed to. So I think that it's time to invest in it. We're gonna pay for this out of free cash. Like a motion that says that.
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Discussion. When the fire department put their software in, why do we put a system that matched with the police?
Does it match?
It will match.
It will, ma'am.
Oh.
But it's not the same system.
No.
No.
Systems have to talk to each other. We could make the fire department system talk to the police department system. So the fire department system is brand new. Police department system is antiquated.
I understand that.
So we're gonna spend $40,000 to make them talk to each other at $30,000?
But why didn't they just get the same software?
It's a
Listen,
personal thing.
Preference, personal
Personal
preference?
I'm just saying
One
that,
liked it, one didn't. Yeah.
I'm just saying that the fire department has their software that can talk to the
I
police
understand
department.
We
And
know.
now, the fire department upgraded, where they got the money, I'm not really sure, but the police department did not.
At the time the fire department upgraded,
Yeah, they probably should have got together and had a plan, but that didn't happen.
that would be,
I mean, that was something that was discussed a couple of years ago.
Right.
So, and so I didn't realize we were going off and having two separate software systems that don't talk to each other.
Well, they did until the fire department upgraded theirs and they couldn't get it to work right and they didn't want to spend the money. That's why we're here. So, I agree with you. It could have been a better plan. Again, we're still stuck with the same problem.
Well, did they already have it installed?
Fire department has their
No,
installed.
the police.
No,
Police has their old antiquated 20-year-old
I
system.
know, so I know that this is what they want it for, so why can't, I mean, why wouldn't we approve it based on the fact that the software needs to be able to
That's right.
talk to the fire department?
That's correct. So we need to spend the money so they all both have brand-new software that works fantastic. The fire department's software wasn't working, so they're supposed to log all this stuff, and they were having trouble, it didn't work.
Yeah, sure,
So they had an emergency, the
I
police
think
department didn't, this is how we got to where we are.
I know, I think that they should have new software, updated software, but I
Okay, so
just
let-
don't understand why.
Okay, so we're gonna approve, we should approve this article and get it going. So,
Okay, so how are we going to determine how are we gonna present this going forward, that they need to make sure that they get software that talks, so we don't have to pay for that money later? I mean, isn't there a demand for them to talk to each other,
well,
like in critical situations?
that is correct. The software has more of an informational aspect, and like I said, the fire department had the emergency, their software wasn't doing what they were required to do, so they upgraded.
I
I'm
know
not making an
that.
excuse for them, because should.
And I know they couldn't wait, so I understand that. I'm
Right,
just
that's
saying,
basically what
what
we-
doesn't the police department, what do they not like about the software?
Well, they liked it, but they need their version of it now, so that's why we're gonna approve the 200,000. So they
Okay,
don't,
so when we do, it'll talk to each other?
yeah, they'll be perfect. Allegedly perfect.
We know that because
Because I talked to one chief, and the other chief says that's gonna work for us too, so. I can't tell you that, he didn't tell me the truth, all I can say is, yeah, this is what we could use. Our software's 15 or 20 years old, and the young guys hate it, that's the exact words. So, okay, so what do you wanna do with this article?
I want to approve it based on the fact that we're going to be smart about it. I
Yeah.
mean, as far as,
Well, I'm absolutely true, that somebody should have had a plan, and those two guys should have got together before they started switching stuff, but.
well, didn't they?
No,
No?
the fire department had an emergency, the police department was doing okay. And the software, now we're in this situation. So, we'll go back to the article. I'd like a motion to approve it out of free cash.
So,
Okay. Got a second?
Second,
Wow. All's in favor?
I defer to you on
yeah, thanks.
Okay, we have the fire truck. It's 18 months out when we order it now. The last one we got in 2015. My suggestion is we're gonna take $200,000 out of free cash, and the rest is gonna be borrowed. That is my suggestion. So I've done the math, and I think we can afford to do that. It's gonna be a year and a half before we have to pay anything. And we may change our mind next year on that, but like I said to you, 200,000 out of free cash and the rest borrowed.
Motion.
Second,
All in favor?
There's a couple at the end, Mike.
I have no idea what Article 29 is. How about you? You have any idea what that 29 is?
29?
Yeah.
It's indemnifying the board members.
Okay.
That we're not personally liable, and it was on the suggestion of our attorney.
Okay. So we don't have to approve that, so let's keep going. At least I know what it is now.
I don't believe you have to approve anymore.
we don't have to approve
Well,
anymore?
we have two at the end, don't we?
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
No, one was put into the budget, and the
Right,
other
so-
one,
So let's go to the two at the end.
yeah, they're still there, but
I mean, I assume we vote on any money articles, correct?
there's 47 and 48.
So let's go to 48 first, and we'll go back to 47. 48, we put the money in the budget so that, in the capital improvement account, so it's subject to Russ and the full field commission picking out what they want for the bleachers and move forward. I would like to approve this article.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
No, I'd like to disapprove it.
Why?
Because we already have it in the budget.
Oh,
So
then why is it on here?
Because it's a citizen's
Citizens
petition.
petition.
Oh,
who are the
oh, oh.
citizens, can't they can tell the moderator at the beginning of the meeting they want to
So,
Take that off.
well, we still have to disapprove it.
So they already have it, so this is already approved in their budget?
It's
It's
in,
in-
it's in the.
It's in the facilities manager's budget.
Oh, okay.
for-
Okay, so we want
It's
to
not
vote.
a- it's not a li- Is it a line item in the facilities management budget, or is it
It's
a
in,
lump
it's,
sum?
it's in capital improvements in the
As
facilities.
a line item?
Well,
A
yeah.
specific line item.
It's not a specific line item, it's a commitment by the selectmen that money will be spent.
It's
for that.
included in the capital improvements in the facility department.
Right.
As a lump sum, but
Well, I
not,
think it should be a specific
not
line item.
earmarked.
it's a-
Jim?
It's, we've got a commitment for the selectmen, that's what we spend it on. I sat down with Russ yesterday,
So then why can't they spell it out?
because
they'd
we
to
have a
spell it
capital
out.
improvement line there, and that's what it is.
You'd have 75 lines. in
Oh.
it.
They
Okay.
couldn't spell everything out.
Pardon?
They couldn't spell everything
Okay.
out.
Okay. So I want a motion to disapprove. Do we have
Make a motion?
a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm sorry, who's second?
I did.
Thank you.
All those in favor to disapprove? Okay, let's go to Item 47. Spoke to something that Clinton Youth Football needs a place to store their stuff, but they're asking us to pay for the storage unit, and I don't think it's not submitted by Full Field.
Who's Clinton Youth Football? Who is that?
I don't know, whoever runs Clinton Youth Football.
Okay, but.
I
so
mean, Little League went
Where
down.
do they store it today?
It used to be up St. John's Gym, I don't believe they've been asked to leave, so. And now they store it inside one of the buildings down there, I think, a little bit,
Down,
at Full Field.
You're opening yourself up to liability here.
Listen, when Little League wanted storage, they made their own storage. I think that we should do the same thing with these people and tell them that they should make their own.
yeah, I don't think there's any way to store it down there, period.
No,
That's,
I mean, it-
And I don't want an ugly container down there sitting in the field,
Right.
you know, so.
yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to disapprove. Who would like to do that today?
Motion.
Second,
All's in favor? Okay. We're gonna go over these articles again after the public hearing, but at least we got a shot at them.
For what we've approved for borrowing purpose, do you have any idea what that does to our debt service as a percentage of the budget?
Really, the two things, except for water sewer, we're borrowing for a roof, and we're borrowing $300,000 on a truck. Okay, so that's not too much of debt service. The $1.5 million should only be $500,000 by the time we get done for the streetscape down there.
We hope.
We hope. But again, you gotta push the project forward, get it out there, get ourselves in the line for those grants, and that's how we're gonna do it.
What's the percentage of debt service to the budget now?
I do not know that. All I know is that we have not,
15, 16,
15 or 16?
yeah, from my figures, off that sheet we have.
yeah.
Jim's gonna get me a new sheet
I have,
with real
a-
numbers in it.
I have another sheet, but again, our debt service, we really, in the last 5 years, haven't really borrowed a lot of money compared to the first 10 years I was here.
And a lot of big things are falling off the edge within the
Yeah,
next
that's
couple of
correct.
years.
So the first 10 years I was here, we didn't have enough money to buy a $140,000 sander truck, so we borrowed. So some of that stuff is starting to come off now. The last 5 years, we haven't borrowed a lot of money at all, unless it was a debt exclusion. So I think that our debt situation's about 100 times better than it was 10 years ago.
That's great.
Right, but I don't have the exact numbers, to be honest with you.
At some point, it'd be a good discussion to come up with a figure as to what our debt service should be and to try and keep it at that.
That is correct.
What is
Yeah,
an appropriate debt
Cap it
service?
someplace.
And then
agree.
a schedule that shows when particularly major debt is gonna come off the books.
I have a schedule that I can determine that, but I have not
You
given it
better-
to the board.
I thought
gonna-
I sent that to you.
I-
Yeah, you
The
did.
one that I sent
Uh,
showed
Yeah,
when everything
with
comes off.
that-
Yeah.
With that one there, you don't, it's, you can interpolate everything you need from it.
Right, but
there
there should be a spreadsheet
yes,
that says,
Yes, A, B, C, D, E,
right, what years.
because you're looking at something you're paying 7,000 a year for, and the thing is 80,000, you know, it's 13 years or 12 years before it's gonna be paid off.
Somebody should have a spreadsheet with the year
Yeah.
numbers on the end, and maybe I'll work on that. I'm getting pretty good with those spreadsheets, you know? But anyway, okay, we got a couple other things to do. We got some minutes here.
Oh,
Move.
right.
Motion to approve.
Second,
All those in favor?
All right,
Okay, and we have a request for $16,000 from the reserve fund. This is for Tony Zare has acting as, this is for Tony right here, because he's been acting as building commissioner for the town while Jim Sam has been going through his training and so forth. It's for $16,000. We agreed to pay him.
Oh,
Okay. We have a motion.
motion.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, we had scheduled a meeting for Tuesday, did we? We don't need that meeting. Wednesday's is public hearing, correct? Okay, so
Cancel.
I don't think we'll have to meet Tuesday, we're gonna meet Wednesday. After the meeting, we're gonna go through the articles very quickly. Again, you'll have the votes in front of you so that we can re-vote them. We'll also get a final approval of the budget. Mike has the budget now, he's gonna keep all the numbers. He has to put in the articles, put in what we've discussed for free cash, and then put in the amount of free cash we're gonna use. So we're gonna be in pretty good shape. Okay?
All right, so the last meeting is Wednesday?
And we usually have a meeting after town meeting. or-
Okay, yeah, I mean, but for that week anyway, 'cause-
That is correct. So I'm hoping that everything's done unless something blows up. So we've, Diane, myself, and Mike, and us have all went through this about 20 times, so.
So what time are we meeting Wednesday, if the public hearing,
Same time, 5:45.
okay.
Okay. I think, that's the end of the finance committee for today, and we'll get it over with. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I gotta do a motion to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn? I haven't done it all year.
Must have public comment too.
Second.
Nobody's
Okay, all in favor? Goodbye. Thank you.
It's funny, the motion.
I always just say,
When somebody says it, I don't think there has to be a vote.
Right.